How are you? Let me know where you're watching from. If you're joining me for the replay too, I want to welcome you so much. We're going to have a good chat today about prepping boards and all of that kind of thing. Here we are. I'm just expanding this. And if you're jumping on and you are a first time watcher or you're brand new to watching here on the Essential Stencils page, I'd love to hear from you. Write in the comments, first time watching or new to stenciling. I want to see all my new to stenciling people there today because we've had a number of extra followers here on the Essential Stencil page in the last little while. And I think that some of you in isolation are really getting into the DIY crafting projects, which is amazing and fun to see. Some of you are even getting your kids involved, which is fantastic. So good to see. I'm just going to share this with my page because I'm from the blog I Restore Stuff. So you'll find my link at the top of the description of this live, and Essential Stencil usually shares that here as well. But I have a page, I Restore Stuff. And so I love to share my Essential Stencil lives over there with them and my group, I Restore Stuff. You can too, that's my group. So if you know anyone who loves DIY, or maybe you've got a business page yourself, you're a sign maker, something like that, feel free to share this live with your people or tag a friend or something like that. So sprinkle the love, we love to say. So let me just check out where my group has gone. Woohoo. Have we got any new first timers? That's what I'm looking for in the comments here. I can't see comments on my phone at the moment, so I may have to just look down to my laptop to see those where I'm kind of got that on the side. So, because I know sometimes Facebook is a little bit, doesn't show them up. Yeah, it's not showing me. Let me just do a little swipe test. Nope, not showing me on the phone. Okay, well, I'll have to refer here to questions, and I'd love to hear your questions today because we're going to be, because there are so many new people in the house these next couple of weeks, and maybe you just want to go back to the basics of signboard prepping. We're going to talk about some different techniques, especially one that I love to use is creating a farmhouse faux barnwood look for a rustic look. I love doing that kind of thing, so I'll be talking about that today, and I'll be using one of Essential's most popular farmhouse sign stencils, and showcasing some of them. I want to show you some of the stencils that are available because maybe you don't have those in your set yet. Are you collecting? Are you gathering a good set of stencils to work with? You know that we do, Essential has the Stencil of the Month Club that you can join, and did you guys get to see in their posts recently, the stencil for May is just beautiful. It's amazing, so can't wait for you to see that. If you join the Stencil of the Month Club using my code I Restore Stuff, you'll get $5 off your first month. And as with all of our lives, if you use our ambassador codes, you can get 10% off all your stencils. So mine is in the top of that link there. It's just the words I Restore Stuff. If you use any of the links that you see Essential posting on the live today, if you use any of the links that are in the description at the top of this live, you will get your 10% off added to the cart taken off the cart automatically when you order any of the stencils. So let's get started. There are several, yes, Essential said, let us know if it's your first time watching. I want to know that too. There's so many of you joining from all over the place. Rose is washing dishes. Virginia, oh wow, so many, Texas, Alabama, all over the USA. I always love to know, because I'm from Australia, if you can't tell from my funny accent, I always love to know if my Aussie family is online. I call them my family. Well, my fellow countrymen are online. We've got a special day that we're celebrating on Saturday. The 25th of April is always Anzac Day celebrated over here, and we commemorate all of the war veterans or anyone who's fought in a war for both the countries of Australia and New Zealand. That's what ANZAC stands for. Australia New Zealand Army Corps. So yeah, that's what we're celebrating this week and commemorating. And because there's usually lots of parades and things like that to honour the veterans, that can't be done this year because of social isolation, distancing and all of the rest of it. especially that a lot of those vets are quite elderly, and so they won't be able to partake in parades or those ceremonies of honour. So a lot of Australians are gathering together this army of people who know how to play the last post on their bugle or their trumpet, and they're going to be coming out onto their driveways. Neighbourhoods everywhere are going to be doing this. So I just thought I'd share this little bit of info with you because I think it's really exciting. They're going to be coming out on their driveways and playing at 6 a.m, like the crack of dawn, the last post, and I think it's just going to be a really emotional time. I just can't wait to see some of those Facebook posts and people doing that on their driveways. I'm trying to convince my husband to pull out his trumpet. He used to play trumpet or cornet. So anyway, comments are flying in here. There's lots of you. There's some that are new people. That is so cool. Yes, we're going to need some awesome Mother's Day ideas soon. I hope you caught Karen said that. I hope you caught my live last week where I showed you some great Mother's Day signboard ideas. Sending mum if you're still in isolation, or if mum is and you can't visit. Just remember those signs I made last week, hello mum, and virtual cuddle, where you can stick a little chocolate or some kind of fun thing down there for a little wave outside their window or something like that. So there's a lot of great Mother's Day ideas you can do. Yes, Ellen said I made a virtual hug sign last week that was inspired by me. Thank you, Ellen. That's awesome. There's a lot of fun ideas. Yes, Karen says, come on, Marty, get that trumpet out. I'll tell him you said that. Yeah, goosebump moment for sure. Alrighty, guys. So let's talk about the different backings you could do on signs. Of course, you've got your just ordinary painted boards. So these are just cardboard, honestly. They are great idea for practicing making signs, and practicing your stenciling is just getting a cardboard box and painting it and then practicing your stenciling on that. And a lot of people might think, well, isn't that wasting paint, you know, because you're doing... No, guys, if you can get your stenciling, if you're not quite perfected your stenciling technique yet and you're still getting a little bit of bleed through underneath, cardboard's a great place to start, or just a brown paper or something like that. So you can always do your painted signboards. There's also stained boards, and now with this one, I've got my autumn signboard out because as I'm in Australia, so it's not spring here right now, it's autumn, and you can see there's that there. I was hoping to bring it up a little bit closer. So on this board, this is actually one of my first lives that I did. So I showed you how you can do the shadowing, and also I showed you, I'll see if we can see this leaf here, that this leaf is actually a bit 3D. Take that up to the camera. Can you see that 3D look on that leaf? That's kind of raised stenciling techniques. So if you want to look back at the lives, we could even find the link and post that here in the but that's how you can get a 3D kind of leaf look on your pieces, or you can 3D any kind of stencils really. You can use that technique for using some kind of embossing paste or powder. I used a couple of different methods for those ones. But the signboard, we're talking about boards today, so the back, I used a couple of different stains. And so on the backing, this board itself had quite a deep groove of the grain of the wood. So if you have ones that have a sort of a heavy grain, you know what I mean? It's like kind of really rough. Even though the surface is smooth, you can see the grain bits in there. You can see it a little bit better on here. But what I did for this one is I stained the whole board in like a black, and the black paint or stain actually sits into all the grooves. Then I went with my sander, just an orbital sander, and randomly ran it over the whole thing. And so even the places, let me see if I can stand it up on my chair, even the places like here, where you can still see that that black has sunk in the grain, but it's distressed the wood a bit and left that wood revealed. So I really like that look as well. That's one thing you can do. Oops. And of course, there's this one here that I made on one of my lives and there's a great Mother's Day idea right there. If you want to go back and check out that idea, is the vintage garden sign. using one of the garden stencils with some hooks on it. Now the backing for this board is just stained wood, so I don't think, no, I didn't stain the other side. I've got my hooks on either side of that here. But I've just stained that board using, pretty sure I just used some watered down brown paint. That's the easy way of, and if you're just using a water-based acrylic paint, just water it down. Add a little bit of water until you're happy with the consistency. Practice on the back of your board. You don't have to practice on the front. You can practice until you get the look that you like, or just a random piece of scrap board, and get the stain colour that you like. I really like that rustic look. How do you think? And so you raw boards of different sizes that you can use. I've gone through this one before. I've actually put together 3 boards. I've had some of you, wood is kind of expensive at the moment in buying from Lowe's or wherever you get your wood over there, hardware stores. So here's an idea. I had some old bed slats lying around and they were just pine, and so you can see each of the boards there as being stuck together with biscuit joins in the grooves there. My father-in-law did that for me, so slot the groove in there. But you can do the other option instead of doing the biscuit join, is just putting a piece of wood here and a piece of wood here and screwing them in all the places so that it holds the boards all together. And then you've got a 3-board sign to use. So just use scraps of wood. Great ideas. We actually found a couple of these pieces of nice signboards, which they'll make great either that way or vertical signs. You know that Essential Stencil has a number of great vertical signs, like the autumn one that I have here. In fact, let me show you that if you haven't already ordered their spring stencil sign, that's it there. So it's Hello Spring, and you get a gorgeous little bonus stencil here with all of the flowers and the birds. And I'll show you where I used that one. I used that the other day. It's got the hello from here. So these are the stencils that you'll find. Look at the butterfly and the bird there. See, I didn't quite finish that on my live the other day, but that's the finished project. But those have come in the spring vertical sign pack. So the link to that is up in the top of the live description up there. Oh, better just check my comments here because they're whizzing past. It is supposed to be spring. Some people are still complaining of really cold weather over there. It's kind of nice springy weather here actually. It's autumn, but it's beautiful weather today. The sun is shining. So I've just got my eyes down here to look at my laptop. If you've just joined me, welcome. I'm Sharon from the blog I Restore Stuff, and I'm an ambassador here at Essential Stencils, and we're talking about creating the backings to our signboards. And I'm going to show you a fun technique now for a weathered signboard look. And yep, Trina likes the birds and the butterflies. Just yes, absolutely. Jude says, I need this to relax. Thank you. I know. It is quite relaxing. I find painting itself quite therapeutic, any kind of DIY and craft. If I'm all bogged down in the business side of business, it's sometimes I just call out to my family, someone give me a paintbrush. I'm just out in my workshop and I start painting and try and forget about all the things, the business side of things. So what I've started with to show you today, I'll just pop this down here so we can see a bit better, is just a signboard that I've actually stained. So I've got the stain there. It's just using some brown paint, like I said, just water down your acrylic paint. And see, it doesn't even, it's quite rough. It doesn't even have to be perfect, because what we're going to do is paint over that. But before we paint over it, I wanted to show you a technique of layering, layering some paint between, and using a resist in between the layers. So here's my example. And the 2 things I'm going to use to resist today is Miss Mustard Seeds beeswax. You can use any wax at all, as long as it's a clear wax. Oh, that would be interesting if you did use a colour wax. And I'm going to use some hemp oil, Miss Mustard Seed products. So you don't have to get them from there, but these are the ones that I have because I'm a retailer in for Miss Mustard Seeds products. And so the hemp oil is just an oily finish that you use to furniture, but today we're going to use it as a resist on this signboard right here, and I'll show you the results. Using this, example that I've done earlier. Now on this board, I've kind of visually cut it into thirds to use as my example. Now I don't know if you can see the underneath layer here, camera's all back to front. There's a blue paint under there. So we've got the blue paint and then the red paint sitting on top. So you can see that layering effect there. And on this side also. Now on this side, I've used a wax puck or just a little bit of wax on the edges of the high points of the blue paint, which the blue paint was down there first. So a lot of times you might have an old piece of furniture and you're kind of like, oh, I like that. I like that color, so I want some of that color showing through. Even the wood colors of the varnishes, sometimes we want to have those show through. Now here's what happens if we don't put a resist. So this middle third right here, I didn't put a wax or anything on the middle of it. On this side over here, I put the hemp oil as a resist in between the blue and the red layers. This side I put a wax layer just on the high points, but in the middle I put nothing. So then when we painted our red across the whole thing and let that dry, I'm going to be showing you this in just a minute. When I sanded back those areas, so the hemp oil showed this beautiful blue underneath and the wax area showed the beautiful blue paint peeking through where I put that wax on those high points. But in here, I don't know if you can see that there's bare wood showing through. So I don't want to go back to that bare wood. I want the wood, I want the blue to show through. So there's a little explanation of what we're going to do with this piece here. So we'll just grab any lint-free cloth and I'm going to use half with a little bit of beeswax. You can use anything you like. I'm just going to rub that a little bit on the surface, just around randomly on areas that I want it to resist. So I'm going to be painting white over the top of this, and here's one I've prepared earlier. So I'll be sanding this one, but the other one that I'm making right now, I'll have to allow that to dry first. So I made sure I made one earlier. So I'm just going to be putting it, I don't want to put it in the middle section because that's where my stencil is going to be going, and I don't want it really necessarily to peel off there, or you could. So this is the areas where the wax is going that your paint, your top layer of white paint, is going to peel back a little bit or sand back and show through those areas of wax. Yeah, someone said they like this sample that I did. Yeah, I show that in my workshops. I do some workshops with people to show them the different ways that you can resist the paint between the layers. So, okay, this is the hemp oil now, so I've put wax on this side. And if you're doing a sample like this, I'm going to mark it and just write down wax here so I know which side has the wax and which side has the hemp oil. Just so you know for yourself, if you're making samples and things like that to show people, if you have your own business that you like to do signboards with, it's a good idea to write those things down so that you know next time. Otherwise, and even paint colors. Sometimes I'll use create a piece of furniture or a sign, and someone asks me, "Oh, what color did you use on that?" And I have to really get out my color chart and have a look because I'm not exactly sure. It's always good to kind of make a note or write it on the back. So Cheryl said, my experience with beeswax is that it remains sticky. Oh, that's interesting. Maybe it's just, I'm not sure if you mean if you're just using it in the normal sense or as a resist, Cheryl. So if you're using it in the normal sense of putting beeswax onto furniture, sometimes that wax can tend to remain a bit sticky if we've put too much wax on. So you only need a little bit of wax for your furniture. Sometimes I'll brush it on with a wax brush. But if you put too much on, it will remain sticky, and if you don't buff it off properly. So buffing is really important. I'm not buffing this one because this is not a piece of furniture that I'm finishing. This is just using it for a different method. Yes, Dahlia says, I wondered how wax worked. I've also seen it with Vaseline. Yeah, I've seen people use that with Vaseline as well. So there's our board. We've done our hemp oil here, our wax here. Now I'm going to grab just some ordinary white paint. This is Fusion Mineral Paints colour Champlain. It's an off-white with sort of brownish undertones, sort of a neutral colour. So I'm just going to paint that over the whole board now. So which was my wax side? Yep, wax is over here. I like to go over my wax side first only because I don't want the hemp oil to drag in the brush and create more of a oily finish over here if I want to see those two differences. Now notice that I can see the paint on the top layer resisting right where I've got the wax here already. So I'll hold that up really close and see if you can see that beading. That's the paint resisting the wax. See those little streaky bits there? It's actually what we call beading, and the paint is beading, and it also beads on surfaces like oil-based enamel paints. If you're trying to paint a piece of furniture and you're wondering why it's not, why it's beading, it could be the surface. There's something on the surface, either some grease or it's one of those varnishes or lacquers that has a really high resist to water-based paints. So in those cases, if you are doing furniture painting, or even your signboards, if you're using an old piece of wood that may have varnish on it, it's a good idea to just check what your surface is like first. If you do notice a bit of resist, I use Zinsser bin stain blocker, and that helps to, it's like a primer, and I use the white version if I'm trying to paint with white, and that's a really good thing to prime and then paint straight over it, and works wonders. You will get no more beading. Okay, Shauna asks what kind of board I'm using right now. This is just a little really thin plywood, so see how thin it is, and I'm actually just going to frame that with some little pieces of, excuse me, I just have to wipe my fingers. I've got paint all over them. Anyone else? I was just going to use, and I've shown this on another live too, with my Essential Stencil Farmhouse stencils, is creating stained little pieces of timber like this and creating a frame for that, sort of making, you know, like a 3D frame. But I'll, there's probably a link somewhere, or you can check the lives for that one where I used that example, creating a frame for the little thin boards. All right, so I've got to let that one dry, so I'll put that away for now, because here's the one that I prepared earlier so that I could show you without having to get out the hairdryer or the sun. So this is my side with wax, and this is my side with the hemp oil. And now, once that's dried, so we've got our brown layer, and imagine that's your old piece of furniture or your old piece of varnished wood that already has a dark stain underneath it. You don't necessarily have to paint a board if it's already got a dark stain underneath it. And say you want to have some of that wood peeking through for a weathered look. So here's our faux weathered look. And I'm just going to use my Sandy Hands sanding glove. You can just use a little piece of sandpaper. We just gently want to start really gently with like a, I don't know, 320 grit or a 240 grit. I'm just going to go roughly around where that was, the wax side. And I want to see if that, yes, that wax starts pulling away from, there it is. See how it's not going through to make it like looking like raw wood, but it's actually, you're seeing the brown stain underneath there. So if I didn't have that wax resist underneath there, there's a chance that when I'm sanding, this would just go back to that raw wood. So you have to go gently. At first, if it's not coming off, go a little bit harder, but it's kind of like stenciling and offloading your brush. The more you have on your brush, the more you're going to get bleed through. Well, the harder you go, you can't really put the paint back on. It's a bit difficult to, once you've gone too far. But so gentle is best. If you need to go more, you can go stronger or a little bit more a little bit later. So that's the wax side. And I can see already that I could have done a little bit more waxing to get a really, it depends how much of a chippy look you want. So that's the wax side there. Don't forget we've got prizes as always, guys. And at the end, I'll be drawing some winners to win some Essential Stencil prizes. So looking at this, my hemp oil trick didn't actually work very well. usually works wonders. And sometimes that is because a lot of the time, see how on this board I showed you the hemp oil section, where is it? There it is. No, it's not. The hemp oil section has come off a lot, and that's because I probably put more hemp oil on than I did on my board, and the wax side was just a little bit. So depending on how much oil you put on, and the other thing is, if you put oil on immediately that you're going, as soon as, like right before you're going to paint is the best, because the oil doesn't have time then to penetrate into the wood. So the oil a lot of the time, because if your watered down stain is quite porous, if you're using a chalk paint or something, then the hemp oil is likely to go right down into the wood. So I'm just going to give it a little bit more of a gentle sanding, and gradually I can see that it is coming away, but not as well as I have done in the past with that method there. Yeah, so we've got a little bit of rustic look here, but not as much as I did with the chippy wax over this side. So there's that idea there. I wish now it kind of looked a bit more even, so I'm seeing if I can just add a little bit more, take a little bit more of that white paint away without getting down into the wood. So yeah, there we go. See, a little bit rougher, and because this is just a plywood, it's really quite cheap, and I think that the grain is actually going up and down on this wood, so it's not going to be the best of grain looks, but yeah, maybe I need a little more roughness to my sandpaper here. Going this way is helping, going with, which I said the grain was actually going this way on this board, which kind of looks a bit funny. There we are, we're getting a little bit more resist there now, so, I mean, a bit more of that roughness. So that's kind of a cool farmhousey look. And then you've got this chipping from the wax. So the beeswax in this instance worked really well, whereas the hemp oil didn't so much. But experiment with both, and like I said, if I added a lot more hemp oil on this area before I put the white paint on, or if I painted immediately after and didn't wait so long for the hemp oil to soak in. That's your two keys for that method. So there's that. I hope you're learning something. Let me just grab comments if you've got any questions about that. Yeah. So Amy just said, I didn't realize you want to put the oil on right before you paint. Yes, that was one tip that I really found helped. So just putting that oil on right before you paint, then you get your brush, paint along. Just need to pop my brush into a plastic bag so that when I do more painting later, I'll have it there and it won't dry out on me. So now let's go on with our stencil, and I want to show you some of the Farmhouse stencils that are available at Essential Stencil. Don't forget to use my code IRestoreStuff, and you'll get 10% off all of your stencils. Now, I also wanted to let you know that the little wood sign tags, there's plenty of those left in stock. So that's the little wooden tags that you can create. I made these on a live the other week with the book pages. So go back and check out that live if you missed that one. That was a fun one to do. And they're just such cute little tags, and you can also use this painting resist method on the wood tags. Isn't that a fun idea? Make some little farmhouse tags for those, and those of course fit directly onto your little mini stencil sets. So this one is the Spring is Here tags, so they've got some gorgeous Spring is Here, a little watering can with flowers and that kind of thing. They fit perfectly on your wood tags, so that's a great idea there. I was thinking about doing even this Valentine's set. If anyone has the Valentine's mini with the Valentine's truck tags, it's got this gorgeous little word in there, love never fails. And I thought that'd be a great mini tag to use for gift giving in this season, for Mother's Day, or for just sharing the love with someone that you love in this time we're in right now. So that's one thing. Now, so some of the signs we've got, and I'm going to be working on this one today because I love these words right now. And it's just the together is my favorite place to be is one side, and the other that comes in the set, and you can't see it really well because I didn't clean my stencils very well, people. I'm so sorry. Bad stenciler. Anyway, it's so good to be home is the other words on the other side. So those are a great set, and I think I might make this sign and the other sign just say these two things because we're all together right now in the same house, living with each other, and we just need a reminder that together is my favorite place to be, and it's so good to be home. We need to be grateful for those of us who are in a home. My goodness, so much to be grateful for. All right, but I just did want to show you also the gorgeous other farmhouse stencils that we've got going on here. The Welcome Gather Farmhouse signs. See, that's using that kind of rustic farmhousey look that I'm using today on these boards. Very similar on the back there. So you can find the links to these, or just use my code I Restore Stuff and look up the farmhouse signs on Essential Stencil and grab yours today. I also wanted to let you know that I noticed there are a few stencil brushes back in stock, guys. So grab those because there's only a few, and don't want you to miss out because I know sometimes I see people saying that they want the stencil brushes, and just thought I'd let you know I saw them. There, I said it. Okay, wrapping the brush in plastic, good idea. Yep, there's my top tip for you. That was free. Are there oils that you can use? Are there other oils that you can use for this effect? Charlotte said that question, and I think that there probably are. So any kind of finishing oil that you would use for painting furniture or wood specifically, I would try. Yes, you can. Yeah, try the Vaseline trick. Yes. If whatever you've got on hand, guys. The beeswax does really work lovely. Okay, so it's so good to be home. Together is my favorite place to be. Let's do that one today. And I'll do the other one on the other board. It's just going to fit my sign, guys. Looks like it'll just fit today. Now, if you're new to stenciling, I'll show you some stenciling tips too, so don't go anywhere. And I would love to pick some prizes for those who are new today, but I can't tell who is and who isn't, so it'll be just random. Okay, just trying to catch up on the comments here. Yes, weathered look. Elizabeth loves the weathered look because it looks old. Yeah. Someone else hates cleaning stencils like I do. It's sometimes because I just don't get around to it quick enough. I should just wipe them off really quickly. Okay, so I'm just placing some tape around there if you need to hold them really still. Because I'm doing this on a white background, I'm going to go with just a black chalky paint or furniture paint. I'm using Fusion Mineral Paint because that's what I have on hand. Judy says, what size are those stencils? Oh, now I don't know which ones you're referring to, Judy. The mini tag ones or these ones, probably say. They're 8 inches by 17 inches. And the other farmhouse stencils are 7 by 16. So there you go. All right, so using my trusty, sorry, there was a phone call just coming in at the same time. I'm going to offload that onto my paper right here. So offloading is the best tip that any of us can give you right now for stenciling. And so we offload as much as we can before we go on here, because if you have too much on your brush, it bleeds through underneath the stencil. Oops, sorry, just trying to keep up with comments here. Deborah said, I don't remember seeing the home stencil. Have to go and look later. Yeah, the stencil will be on the description of the live. You can find them there. All right. So So guys, I'm just doing a little twirling method. So there are a couple of different ways that you can stencil, and this is just one of them. So I usually offload my brush and then swirl really gently, and it actually doesn't go under the edges of the stencil like I thought it might when I first started using this method. So it is a pretty good way of stenciling it. The other method you can do is stippling, which is just going like this, but I'm not getting as much stippling as I would if I'm swirling. Let me just see if I can show you. You can see that little tiny stipple mark there. Let me try again. Stippling or swirling. And I just find that swirling kind of has a little bit more coverage than the stippling. I tend to have to work a little bit harder to do it, but it's totally personal preference. And you can do your own thing, but the biggest key is to offload. And that goes for if you're using a makeup sponge or a roller. I prefer that I offload as much as I can first before I paint, otherwise you get... It's really tough to try and remove any of that extra bleeding under once it's on there. And you lift it up and you see that it's bled around the edges. There are ways of fixing it, but it's so much easier, guys, if you can just have less. Less is more, they say. So it's so much easier if you can just fix it before you do it, which is not really fixing it, is it? To get it right the first time, that's probably what I was trying to say. Someone can hear my birds in the background. Well, they're not my birds, I call them that, but they're just native birds flying around. It's almost like it was spring here right now, and it's amazing with the quieter traffic that's around these days, you just do hear a lot more of nature, don't you? Is anyone else finding that? What native birds or animals have you got in your neck of the woods? Yeah, someone said that they missed the rubber band trick, but I do use a rubber band at the end of my furniture painting brushes because they're kind of long bristles. So a rubber band or you could use painter's tape wrapped around the end of the bristles. It just shortens the end of the bristles to make them a little bit stiffer so that you can stencil with them. Ellen says you make it look so easy. Oh, well, I've had a lot of practice, Ellen, so I think the more you do it, the more you get a little better at it and a little faster at it. But definitely probably makes it look easy, but it is so therapeutic. Good exercise for your hands too. Guys, exercise for your hands, that's what we'll call it. Are you doing your exercise today? Yes, I'm doing it with my hands. I'm so not an exercise person, sorry to say, but Stephanie says sometimes I think it's Marty whistling. It is the birds. No, it's not Marty whistling. It's not him practicing his trumpet either. Yeah, practice, that's the key. Okay, just going over these little words that are in sort of like a typewriter font, I want to say. I love that old font. Let's see, Tammy says, I think I learned that for crisp lines, don't push on your brush, let the brush float over your project. Yeah, that's a great tip too, especially if you're using it on furniture. Oh, do I have a piece of tape? No, I don't. I thought I had a piece of tape on the back there. When you're doing that on furniture too, is a great tip is to just let your brush flow over the project. Just flowing like on a 45-degree angle. When I'm stenciling though, I like to just test it out first. So I've offloaded my brush. I'll do a little swirl lightly. If I see that it needs more, I do push a little heavier. But really, you shouldn't be putting a lot of strain on your hand. Sort of like, you know, when the teacher tells you, or used to tell you, when you were learning to write, don't use all that pressure. And sometimes I used to do this too. You're holding the pencil and you bite before you get that hand ache because for so long you've just actually been using too much pressure as you're penciling. Well, just remember to relax your hand. Just give it a little twirl around, relax, and I hold it probably up a little bit further on the stencil brush, not so close down here, and just somewhere where it's going to just twirl itself almost, you know, give it a little bit of relaxation. It's doing a little dance, guys. It's just doing a little dance over my, that sounds really artistic, doesn't it? Yeah, Tina hears the birds too. Oh, Anita, that sounds fun. It's been in the 80s, she says. Boys filled up the cattle trough and swam all day in it today. That sounds so much fun. All right, here's the reveal of our stencil. Together is my favorite place to be, and you can see our little rustic bits on the side. Now, if I was going to do that again, I probably would love a little bit more rustic chippiness up here, but see how you can, I hope you enjoyed that little tutorial and how you can get that chippy sort of look there. So remember, that was the wax side here. I think I've flipped my board upside down. There's the wax side there, and this is the hemp oil side here. And our sign just fits on there perfectly. I probably would like a little bit more space here. So if I was measuring a board, which I didn't, I just grabbed some that were on hand. If I was measuring a board, I'd leave a little bit more space, white space here on the side is what they would call that in the graphic design world. Just leave a little bit more space here, sort of like what we've got on the top. So there's a bit of space here, and there's a bit of space here on the bottom. So when you're spacing out your stenciling for a sign, I would recommend just a little bit wider than what I have here. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed those tips today. And the other one is the, it's so good to be home sign. Let me see if my board's actually dry, because this one that I did earlier, my paint might actually come off a little easier. Let's just test that out, shall we? So, looking at that again, here's the wax side and here's the hemp oil side. So if you've just joined, we were creating a resist in between two layers of paint. We had the brown stain on the bottom, and then we added a bit of beeswax on this side and some hemp oil on this side. And now we're going to sand it off to see how we can see that. After we've painted the white on, I'm now going to sand it off to see if we can actually see that layer of brown stain underneath. I'm just going to try and rub this sanding glove a bit because it was getting a bit clogged up. You can actually wash these and peel the grit out. All right, so here's the wax side. Let me just show you that again for those who missed. Okay, there it is, coming off a lot more easily. Oh, there's a great nice chippy bit here because I actually put a big chunk right there, but also I haven't allowed the paint to dry for a lot longer. I actually put that other board out in the sun to dry this morning, so it's actually hardened the paint a lot more. You don't want it to be wet, that's for sure, but it is definitely dry. And then when I add a finish over the top of this, it'll actually show this a lot darker there. So that's the wax side. And the wax coming off there. I need some more different sandpaper. I'll grab my other glove and see if we can get some more after this. But this is a lighter grit, so it may not work as well. Okay, this is the hemp oil side. May need a rougher sandpaper, you guys. I might go for this little bit on the end of my glove here. Really push it hard. There we go. So I've just used a little bit of beeswax and then some hemp oil on the other side just to show a little bit of a difference. And at Essential Stencil, we always give away prizes at the end. Just thought I'd mention that again. So don't go anywhere, you might win something special. And Essential has also put up the link there, guys, for those stencil brushes. If you missed out last time, there's only a few left, so go grab those and use the code IRestoreStuff, or use that link and it'll automatically be 10% off for you in the checkout. There we go. See that one? I liked how that turned out. A lot better. Who's with me? Yeah. So again, when I place a finish over the top of that, say I wanted to put a hemp oil finish or a wax finish over the top of that, I don't want to do it before I put the stencil on. So I have to do that after, but I'll just show you with a wet cloth, because even if I wet it, it will sort of show you what I mean. Let me see. This is a bit wet. It'll just show those areas a little bit darker. Where am I going here? My camera keeps wanting to go the wrong way. So I'm just going to wipe off that top paint and hopefully it'll, oh no, not too much darker, but sort of makes those wood bits stand out, or the stain underneath. So there's that chippy feeling. So this was the, I'll turn it back the other way. The wax side here, I've labelled it on the back. So again, I'll just give you that tip. If you're trying to do an experiment and see the difference, make sure you label the backs of your boards. So that's the wax finish here, and this is the hemp oil, not finish, resist. So I've made a resist layer in between the stain and the white paint on top. So with that one, I'll go ahead and I won't do that now, but I'll be putting the It's So Good to Be Home stencil on this one. And we've just done the Together Is My Favourite Place to Be. Now just real quickly, I want to show you how I can just wax that board to finish it off. So we've got our beeswax cloth over here that I was using before, just a lint-free cloth. And the only reason, I mean, you don't need to necessarily wax or finish or put a sealer over the top of your board. You could do any number of things. If you're just sitting it on the wall and it's a paint like Fusion that has a built-in top coat, there's really no need to add a finish because it's just sitting on your wall. It's not going to be used, it's not going to be out in the weather. But if you wanted to, the reason that I'm going to do this today is add a finish is because it will sort of highlight and show and just give a little bit more clarity to the stenciling. It'll give it a nice sheen to go on top. So I'm just going to add that with a little cloth. And maybe I'll just do one section. Now sometimes I'll do this with a brush if I'm using it on furniture. Sometimes I just use a lint-free cloth. So once you've applied your wax, there was someone on here before saying that they find that wax is a little bit sticky. Once you've applied it with your brush, you let it sit there for a couple of minutes. I've only done this one side, so we'll see if we can see a bit of a line down the center just to show the difference. This was the hemp oil side. It deepens the color of the paint, and if you're using a chalk paint and milk paint especially, but it also deepens that color of that wood grain that shows through, or the stain that shows through. So I'll show you close up in a minute. Then once that's done and finished, take another cloth, another clean cloth that is like a lint-free cloth, obviously, as well. This one's just t-shirt fabric, and no, the color's not going to run on there because I've used it before, so that's the only reason I know, but probably better to use a white one if you're using white paint. Anyway, so just you want to buff that then. So once that's all there dry, this is the way that you don't get the wax to become sticky. So I'm now buffing the wax to make a nice, beautiful, smooth sheen. If it's still sticky, this part here is still tacky because I haven't buffed it. And you will tell a difference. You may not see that right here in the light. See if I can get that angle. No, you probably can't see that. I don't know. Maybe you can there. Can you see that there? See how I've, where have I waxed? I have not waxed this part here, but look towards the end and you can see the part where I've waxed showing up. There's a little bit of a sheen on here. Where is it? I'm lost. I'm all upside down, guys. Now I have to feel my board. Here we go. So this is the wax part, and I'm just going to buff that other side as well. See if we can see that sheen showing up. Okay, sheen is on this side. You can kind of see it's a nice smooth finish. Anyway, that's my tips for when you do a piece of furniture and you wax it. I'll remember to do this side afterwards. But yeah, that's the idea, is to buff it off really well, because if you don't buff your wax and you just kind of leave it sitting there, it will be tacky and it will collect dust and things, and it will collect grime and stuff like that. All right, we need to pick some winners today. So while you're just chatting amongst yourselves, I'll pop my glasses on and see if I can find some winners. Thank you so much, guys, for all of your comments.